The following is a special presentation of iRacing on LSRTV, your home for sim racing.
And good evening, race fans. Welcome to LSRTV's continuing coverage of the DJ Harris Design Truck Series live tonight, north of the border, the Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. Here for 64 laps of action in the Truck Series. Should be a real good one here. Excited to bring you live action on the road course. Big trucks, horsepower, turning left and right. It's going to be a lot of fun. David Schildhouse here along with Gary Weaver and Justin Prince on the call. Brent Wheeler on the wheels of steel, bringing you all the sights and sounds of the racing action here as well. And Justin, we'll go to you first. You take these big NASCAR trucks, put them on a road course. What do you get? Turning left and right. It's not the easiest thing to do, but sure is a lot of fun to watch.
It absolutely is, especially if you compare it to the real-world equivalent with the Camping World Truck Series. This is a track where there's a lot of opportunities to try and get passes, but a lot of opportunities is where you could end up going into the grass as well and off the course. That can cause a lot of trouble today and potentially could cause some cautions here and there throughout the field today.
And Gary, taking a look at the field, not the biggest field in the world, about 7 or 8 trucks out here, but quality drivers nonetheless. They're going to have their hands full as it is. Maybe it's better there aren't 20-some drivers out there. These guys are struggling to keep it on the pavement, so if they can just sort of stay within themselves, maybe we can avoid those yellows, because to get around here at a cautious pace takes a while. We want to see green flag racing.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a little bit of an advantage as well, since, of course, like you mentioned, not exactly 20 cars here. So on the bright side, though, it's just that keeping within themselves is that they're going to have to race the track instead of themselves.
Yeah, always the hard thing when you come into a road course. And, you know, I don't think these guys are always used to coming to the road course. Definitely an oval first type of series. And, Justin, when you come to the road course itself, what's the strategy you have to employ to find a lot of success?
In terms of majority of the races here, you gotta be, in one, have decent track position, but two, you got to be in the case where you will be able to keep moving forward without making mistakes. Because if you go off into the large runoff areas, like at Clayton Corner, for example, through Moss Corner, or anywhere across the racetrack, it will cost you so much time and could cost you a chance to even run, say, in the top 5 for a lot of these drivers. So you have to make sure you minimize mistakes while also making sure you have a strong run throughout the race today.
Yep, keep it on the track. Probably going to be the key to success here as qualifying is wrapped up. We got a couple guys that took time. Not everybody taking time. Let's take the opportunity now to dive into your LSRTV starting lineup. On the pole, it's going to be the driver of the number 70. That's Aaron Smith with a qualifying time of 1:18.298. His outside. Also in the 118 bracket, it's going to be Austin Edwards driving the number 18. Row number 2 will be Dalton Williamson in the number 2, and also next to him, starting 4th, it's going to be Kevin Maffitt in the number 42.
In the 3rd row, it's going to be Lance Simon making his first start. In the 5th spot in the 04 truck, he'll start alongside Jordan Corn, who's had a pretty strong start to the season. In the following row, it's going to be Zach Probst and Caden Atkins. And rounding out the field is going to be Joseph Sklice and Daryl Harris for the 10 drivers here.
There you have a look at your LSRTV starting lineup here for the DJ Harris Design Truck Series here from Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. Give you a quick rundown of this racetrack as we get set for what should be a fairly lengthy pace lap here. It's about 2.5 miles, 2.46 miles to be exact, 10 turns, And Justin, as you look out at the track, I think you rattled off a few of the unique corner names. When we get under green, we'll probably have you take us around here for a lap and tell us all the fun names that these tracks have. But 10 corners to manage, a lot of tight turns and some long straightaways. So, Gary, getting off the corners, getting down the straightaway is very important. Quite a few passing zones, too, so these guys got to be careful to set these passes up.
Yeah, especially since this track has a very wide amount of turns. It's not even close even to Watkins Glen, which has majority straightaways. Basically, a few left or right turns here, a chicane in the middle of that, and then compare that to Sonoma, which is essentially in the middle of a desert with so many turns, and then we're just pretty much here, which is just a long sweeping road course here in Canada. So it's going to be a very different track compared to, again, Watkins Glen or Sonoma, even at times Montreal as well in Canada. So it's going to be, again, quite interesting. And, of course, there's the one long straightaway, and well, it's definitely not this corner whatsoever. It's essentially a back straightaway, so that's going to be something to look out for.
This race length works out to about 157 miles, if my math's correct. And this is the fourth race of the season here. A week ago, we were at the Martinsville Speedway, and Austin Edwards took home his second win of the season, second consecutive win, as he won 2 weeks ago back at Myrtle Beach as well. So we look at the point standings coming into tonight. You know, guys that are trying to make their way up into the top of the standings. And winning 2 races is definitely a good way to do that. If you're Austin Edwards, put your name right at the top of the points standings as well. So 2 wins, maybe a third in line for him here as he starts on the outside of the front row. Good way to get off here for the 4th race.
Yeah, good spot for him. Remember, he's won the past 2 races as well at Myrtle Beach and Martinsville, but this is a very different beast. Throughout the practice leading up to qualifying, despite having the comparable time to Aaron Smith II, multiple times, especially into turn number 1, he would lose the back end and end up getting loose heading into the corner and through the apex. That was the case for a majority of the drivers around the racetrack as well. So for Edwards, a predominantly known oval side driver for a lot of the different parts of this across the iRacing service, will have to make sure he keeps the truck stable to keep up with the 70 and try and take advantage of the good starting position.
Yeah, definitely not something that you want to waste as a good starting spot, especially here where track position means so much at this big road course. And again, the focus is going to have to be, and if I'm one of these drivers, it's definitely going to be keeping it on the road. That's going to be something we're going to highlight here and keep an eye out for, especially through the first opening corners here. These guys side by side, you get a little anxious, a little nervous. You got to hit your braking points and not run into the guys around you. And like you said, there's a lot of runoff area here. So you go for an expedition off the racetrack, it's going to take you a while to get back onto track, and you're going to lose a lot of time. So that's not going to be something that is going to work out to your advantage. These guys forming up here. Look at that. Porsche pace car make the right-hand turn. Green flag is in the air, and they're down and away. First lap going to be under green here from Canadian Tire Motorsports Park.
And a good start for Aaron Smith II to be able to already get up to single file. Edwards having a good strong exit as well. The rest of the field really struggled on the exit at turn 1. They are already taken off already going into Clayton Corner.
Kind of an awkward time for the green flag to come out as we got one car off the track. That's going to be the number 42, Kevin Maffitt, taking a unique line down there after the first couple of turns. Not the start that he wanted there. Speaking of unique, he's got a unique sponsor on the hood of that number 42. Gary, did you get an eye on that sponsor in the practice session?
Yeah, apparently it's Call Me a Buffoon Incorporated. It's apparently a new thing that Kevin Maffitt has gotten picked up by, so it's a very interesting sponsor. So unique line, unique sponsor, and of course he's still hanging on for the time being. He's only fallen, of course, back to the 6th place position, but he does have more than enough time to really recover from that.
Yeah, call me a buffoon, but don't drive like one, I guess would be the mantra to put out there tonight. No change up front. Aaron Smith still holds down the lead in the number 70 as they work through the final corner coming on the front stretch here. And Justin, let's take the opportunity as they flash by the start-finish line. Take us around a lap here at CTMP.
Yeah, right now here at CTMP, you're seeing them go through turn number 1 where you want to be able to get towards the rumble strips, then come up on the exit and maybe just clip those rumble strips. Then this is where a lot of drivers make mistakes and go too hard in through Clayton Corner. There's a lot of drivers who will go up through the grass. Then they'll go through Quebec Corner for turn number 3 for the quick right-hander. Try and have that tight little camber section. Then they have this nice straightaway here that leads them down to Moss Corner where you have the opportunity to get a little bit of a draft and a bit of a run downhill. And we see so many drivers just try and go for late braking to catch up to the back of the driver in front of them. They go through Moss, a 2-part corner for 5 and 6. Exit off the corner, then head down the Mario Andretti straightaway where the exit out of Moss really sets you up for the rest of the Mario Andretti straightaway to get the draft and gain up some of the time back from the first half of the course. They go into then to turns 8 and 9, which are the S's. You start them off wide, then you approach White's Corners for the final corner as the caution flag has come out.
There we go. First yellow flag of the night has come out. Looks like Caden Atkins, maybe?
No, it's actually the number 3, Jordan Corrin, spun out and slammed the right side wall, which apparently would be the inside wall according to road course terms, and unfortunately don't think he really caught anybody else, but that's a very, very tough break for Corrin, but he does have a few fast repairs to use, 3 to be exact.
Well, that's good. 3 fast repairs will help him out. Yeah, that's on the exit of turn 6, leading onto the Mario Andretti straightaway, I should say. Looks like he grabbed a little bit of too much of that inside curb, upset the balance of the race truck on acceleration there, and around she went. Pretty simple. Happens all the time, but lesson learned for him there. He'll use one of his quick fixes and jump back in the race, but the green flag flies here on lap number 2.
Yeah, and I don't blame him for having to use that. Of course, the blown engine. I wouldn't be surprised if the rest of the field does not go in to get pit stops this early, because usually the fuel run is around maybe 28 to 32 laps. They're going to have to stretch it towards the 32 for the most part because of how important it is to take 1 stop rather than, of course, 2 with the 64-lap race. So now this will help to maybe save a little bit of fuel, tiny little bit of fuel, to keep that within the range and make it safely to a 1-stopper.
There's still going to be some strategy here, as these guys are going to have to navigate. Like we said, 64 laps, that's not a short distance, and you're going to take every advantage you can and try and strategize a way to, at least if everything goes to plan, put yourself in the right position to win. Now, I think we saw in the practice session a pretty wide variety of lap times. 2 guys, Aaron Smith and Austin Edwards, were definitely the 2 that were in the ballpark for setting the fast pace, and a couple of guys were a few seconds off from that. So perhaps it's going to be a tale of 2 drivers up front and the rest of the guys battling mid-pack. But between those 2, they really got to figure out what's going to be the differentiating aspect to the way they approach this race so that they're not on top of each other and come out with the win.
Yeah, they definitely have to, I think, for sure. It's going to take some smart calls, I think, to try and get up to the front, especially since you've seen how much of a jump that both Smith and Edwards were able to get just from turn 1 alone from the strong run. As take a look at this, it looks like everybody's just going to say, give me some 4 freshies. They're going to come in despite running just the 2 laps. As it looks like we got an accident right heading into the S's for Daryl Harris.
Oh, geez. That's always a little embarrassing when you're out there by yourself, trying to catch up to the field, it looks like, and just wheel hopped it a little bit coming into through the S's there, setting up for White's Corner. Just lost control. The number 48 heads off into the sand barrier there, or in the sand trap, I should say, and nudges up against the tire barrier in the Let's Stop Cancer Chevy Silverado there. A little damage by the fuel inlet there. That's come in and get that fixed. I guess he'll be on his way.
And many people, unfortunately, having trouble with their pit stalls, and the main one is that number 18 of Austin Edwards having major problems with his pit stop. I don't think he really even took a pit stop whatsoever. He's been struggling to get into that box pretty much the entire time, so he may be coming in the next time around.
Well, that could be rough too, Justin. You don't want to mess up the pit stall or the pit strategy this early on. You got time to make up for it, but still, if you can't get it right this time, what's to say you don't get it right next time too?
Yeah, Gary hit it right on the head. It's so difficult to make sure you get in the pit boxes at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park because of how small it is, and it could be the difference between half a second to even a couple seconds. as it looks like Aaron Smith II might have gotten a black flag because he's going all the way to the back of the field. So is Edwards.
A little interesting twist there. Put the two fastest guys at the back of the pack, make them fight through. That could be something worth watching, I guess, right?
Yeah, that's going to make things interesting here. They had to let everybody by so far. The top three trucks rather that are in front of them you might see on your screen. And they're still keeping up the speed because everyone's still trying to catch up to the pace car that's still halfway down the Mario Andretti Straight. So this is going to be a bit of a test to see how quickly can they try and cut through the drivers up in front of them for position, maybe.
Well, you know, maybe it's going to be a little bit of fun for them. Like I said, they were, what, 4 seconds faster, Gary, than the next closest competitor in the practice session, and about the same in qualifying as well. So if you have an extra 4 seconds of pace in your back pocket to play with, I guess you can have a little bit of fun with it. It is kind of a risky maneuver, though, isn't it? Because you ultimately have to pass cars and put yourself at risk.
Yeah, it's pretty unfortunate because not everyone really has experience at this racetrack, but unfortunately for Zach Probst, just after he left pit road, he actually made contact just coming out of, I believe, the first or second corner. He was going a little bit too fast and then slammed the left-hand side of the wall. That's where he got that left front damage from. So, unfortunately, he's going to be starting in front of all these 3 other drivers. So, unfortunately, he's really at a disadvantage right now. So, I don't really know if he's going to try and race it out or just maybe just let everyone else by and play it safe. That's definitely what Austin Edwards is doing a little bit, I believe. He's laying back just a little bit, or that could be from like the 25 car by. Not sure as of yet. Doesn't look like it though.
It'll shake things up, and I would imagine, you know, at a track that has straightaways like this, Mario Andretti straightaway is being one of the longest ones here. It is the longest one by a long shot, I should say. Aerodynamics do play a role. You got to make sure that you don't have crinkled fenders and a jacked up spoiler, because that will affect your straight line speed, and that can allow your competitors to make an easy pass on you down the straightaways.
And not only that, you got to factor in, there's a possibility of possible suspension damage that will affect how the truck turns, for example. Seen in so many different series have effects where it looks like maybe it's just cosmetic, but when you go to turn the wheel, it feels like it's kind of a rotating kind of feel. Not like, you know, rotating of a wheel. I mean like rotating off-center kind of. That makes it difficult to turn in on that specific tire. So that could also become a possible factor, not just the damage that will affect them down the straight lines.
Good point. Yeah, it's not always what you can only see, but sometimes what you can't see. The suspension component's a large part of what makes these NASCAR trucks go around the racetrack, so you got to make sure you keep all the nuts and bolts tight and all the parts and pieces attached, and you do damage to those things, it'll definitely hinder your ability to get around the track, and you might have to use one of those fast repairs that you might want to save for later in the race. You get 3 of them, and those can really be a bailout at the right time. If you get a late yellow or get caught up in a bad incident late, you get a new truck and you're right back in it. But lights are out atop the rough, get it right this time, the rough pace car that leads around final corner here, gets set up for the green flag. It's going to be Zach Probst out front in that Menards number 88. Takes the green flag. We're back underway here on lap number 5.
And an absolutely great start from Probst, but look at how Smith and Edwards have already moved up a spot and already making the charge on Maffitt, gaining a heck of a lot of time just in the span of 1 corner as Probst is off the racetrack.
Well, a little too much pressure there. It's too good to be out front. Couldn't handle it. Missed the braking point, and off goes the Menard Chevy. Now we got to fight for the lead as the 42s go off as well. Under the pressure, is there a magnet just pushing negative energy out from the front bumper of Aaron Smith? He's moving these guys out of the way. He's not even touching them.
Yeah, everyone is starting to go off. They're trying to push so hard to stay in front of those two that it doesn't seem to work out. The head now down, and the 18 is all over the back bumper. The 70 got a little bit of the curb, and unfortunately that will completely drain the momentum for the time being on this straightaway. But trying to look, at least as 25 got by the 88 of Probst, those two are battling for what looks to be position number 4 for the time being.
Yeah, good scramble back there behind the 2 leaders. And, you know, Justin, we'll call it what it is. There's a clear separation in overall pace from the 2 drivers up front versus the rest of the field. So that creates a little bit of an interesting segmentation, if you will, of what we're going to watch up front between Aaron Smith and Austin Edwards battling for the lead. And then the rest of the guys sort of in the mid-pack, your Dale Harris, Zach Probst, Joseph Schleiz and Kevin Maffitt as well, and a little foursome there. So a couple things to keep an eye on as these guys around similar pace here running their own little group, but the guys out front clearly checked out. Aaron Smith in that 70 is gone.
Yeah, he has taken off in part because right out of White's corner, Edwards got loose. He's trying to recover it back, gaining time on Smith here in Quebec corner. But I think Smith has just that little extra bit of pace, especially the consistency to be able to get around the course that we've seen in practice well in qualifying. 0.4 of a second difference in qualifying, 0.2 of a second difference for the best times in practice. And you're seeing the differences there of how Smith's handling the exits of the corners, especially compared to Edwards, to be able to keep it stable and pull away as Darrell Harris in third went off the racetrack.
Going to be something we highlight a lot here tonight. We might have to make a little bit of a drinking game out of it. Take a drink of water every time we say somebody went off there. No worse for the wear, though. Darrell Harris picked a good spot to go off. He doesn't lose too much time in that 48. Remember, we talked about him not too long ago for his little incident coming to under yellow there, sort of self-spun in the same area he's coming up to now, but he's back underway, looking good in third spot there as Zach Probst has recovered and is in fourth in the 88. Joseph Schleiz in the number 25 running fifth, and Kevin Maffitt in the number 42 running sixth. No change out front, but the 70, wow, this shakes things up. Aaron Smith down pit road.
Yeah, Aaron's, I'm not sure either, Gary. I'll let you finish my thought here.
Yeah, not sure why. He's taking left side tires, though, so quite unsure on what's going on or there's anything wrong, and unfortunately looks like he's just going to take it behind the wall, so probably just maybe a little bit of a hardware issue or something, but that's going to give the lead to the 18.
Yikes. Well, so much for the fun battle we were going to have between the two guys that had the fastest pace out here. Aaron Smith, the second half of that duo with Austin Edwards that was absolutely pacing this field, and now if you're Austin Edwards, Justin, I'll put it to you very plainly, what do you do now for the next 54 laps?
Make sure you stay on the racetrack because you got a third straight win possibly locked up. No offense to the other contenders, but as long as he keeps up the same pace, he's got a strong run for his car right now. Look, last time by 5-second difference in lap time, the best lap is about a 6-second difference at this point. So he's got clean air, lots of open space. Just got to make sure you keep the truck clean, I think, at this point.
Yeah, that's probably going to be about it, but disappointing. Definitely disappointing to see if you're, watching the race or...
Oh, Edwards.
Oh, look at Edwards out there by himself, power drifting it. Can he keep it on track? He's going to spin it all the way around. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, and Edwards going to damage both sides of the truck, more so the back. The front's going to be slightly damaged. This is going to allow Darrell Harris to come back into the picture, throw away the spots for third behind him because both of the third place trucks went off into the grass. But a lot of time lost, still in the lead though by 3 seconds as he's testing out the wheel.
Just action everywhere. Everyone's struggling to keep it on the track, even the guys under the least amount of pressure, Austin Edwards.
And Zach Probst just absolutely did a tank slapper to the front of his truck. Pardon me, David, at the same time mentioned he was off in the grass as well with that 25. He responded by going off into the corner, following the 25 off the corner again through Quebec corner and just smashed the front end. And now he's got possible engine damage, I believe.
Well, these guys are going to exhaust their 3 quick repairs, Gary, I think, before we even get into the first quarter of this race in the books. But everyone's just struggling out here. It's a well-known fact. Canadian Tire Motorsport Park is not an easy track to get around. You definitely have your hands full as Austin Edwards around again in the final corner, keeps it straight somehow. I'm not sure if there's something with the setup or something with the track itself, or these guys just are that uncomfortable out here.
I mean, it's, like you mentioned, very difficult, so you don't really know how to really handle this raceway. And, of course, it's not often of a track that you usually go to, again, like Watkins Glen or Sonoma, but Harris is closing the gap as best as he can, and he did right then. So, looking at the previous lap times, the fastest was Daniel Harris by over 10 seconds compared to Austin Edwards' last lap time. So, again, just it could be the damage that could also be playing into effect, but it's very uncharacteristic, essentially, to see all these trucks go off a little bit more often than they are. But again, it is a little bit of a difficult track, and not everyone's used to it like Watkins Glen or Sonoma.
No, I've I've made very few laps in any sort of racing sim around this track. I've seen it on television plenty of times, and Justin, maybe you have some laps around here on the iRacing service or other services as well, but it looks like a very difficult one. Even though there's only 10 corners, it's just every corner seems to be so challenging.
It is, and it's about trying to make sure he doesn't go you don't go too quick on the exits, as well as make sure you don't have too much of a slick track, because the track temp is actually pretty cool, fairly cool, 84 degrees track temp. That's cool for in terms of stock car standards, but it's also very hard to try and keep things stable on the road course, especially compared to, as you said, the Watkins Glen, because of how this track is with how much speed you carry, and Edwards is showing it right there. It's hard to try and keep a straight line. The best drivers and the ones who are usually the ones who are able to come away with victories are the ones who are able to make the least mistakes. And so far, the mistakes have been growing more and more.
Yeah, mistakes compounding on top of mistakes. And, you know, the only thing I like to have compound is my interest for my savings at the bank, but definitely not mistakes when it comes to getting around the racetrack here. You got 2.46 miles. That's a long way to get around, and a long time to think, especially if you're Austin Edwards sort of out there by yourself still, even with all the mistakes, enjoying probably about a 5-second lead right now over Daryl Harris in the number 48, currently running second. Third's going to be Kevin Maffitt. Joseph Schlees is going to be in fourth right now, and Zach Probst just parked the number 88 as well. So we're down to 4 trucks running on the track right now.
At this point, it's pretty much just a last man standing, so could pretty much more than likely throw a track position out the window and just survive to the end at this point. So somehow Edwards is hanged on after power drifting for a couple of laps as dirt track style. So pretty not really sure how to find the right horse for this, but it's unexpected, especially since again, Canadian Tire, and not a lot of these drivers have all that common races here. So it's again, just a little bit unexpected, but that's pretty much how difficult Canadian Tire could be at this point. I mean, I've never raced here, so I'm pretty sure I'd be going off pretty much every single lap, or just pretty much a little bit slower than some of these guys.
I've done one truck race on a road course, I think, in my entire iRacing career. That was earlier this year. Did a league race, trucks at Road America, and I was by far not the fastest guy there by any stretch of the imagination, but Justin, my goal was to keep it on the track, even if that meant going slower, because I felt that was my best opportunity to give myself a good finishing position. And ultimately it worked out pretty well for me, and these guys might want to adopt the same mentality.
Yeah, I'll say this. Usually, it's a good day if I finish off a race with the hood. Unfortunately, Joseph Sklies cannot say the same thing about keeping his truck on the racetrack, because he crashed. You'll see it on your screen right now, out of Clayton Corner, again going in the grass. He ends up going back on the racetrack, swings him to the left, and slams headfirst into the wall once again and demolishes the engine. So that's going to be a tow truck for at least a few minutes, possibly at least a lap down, and going to hurt him now on the racetrack. Meanwhile, Harris, who remembers in second, just tank slapped the wall out of White's corner in live action.
Not going to be much left out there aside from the drivers and a steering wheel maybe at this point for the amount of contact that we're seeing, as he's just out of shape again. Daryl Harris is pushing everything he can get out of that 48, and a rough go for him nonetheless, still running second. But I guess that comes with a little bit of an asterisk, considering, you know, there's not many guys out there to be running against. Austin Edwards continues to pace the field by over 11 seconds now over Daryl Harris there. So not much more to be said there at this point, as we're on lap 13 of 64. We're going to have 50 laps to go next time by.
Yeah, it's a long race ahead of them, but something for Daryl Harris is that, I mean, it is good that he's a little bit loose trying to push the car. I mean, that's a good sign that he's pushing the truck in this case, but maybe a little bit too much could be the case, since, I mean, there's pushing the truck and then there's pushing it just a bit too much beyond its limit. So you need to find that limit and then adapt to it, push as much as you can. And pretty much everybody in this race has already found out that the very first corner, second corner actually I should say, is the first corner is this right-hander that Austin Edwards is taking, and then the left-hand turn that he's just about to come up to. This corner is the one that's gotten pretty much everybody, so everyone's slowly starting to get used to it. As Austin Edwards, every time I think somebody's going to fly off that track, and I think the 18 almost did, but he managed to save it just in time.
Well, Justin, you seem to have a pretty good handle on this racetrack as we see Austin Edwards continue to slide that rear end around. Clayton Corner, an off-camber corner is what they call it there. A quick transition out of the right-hander for one, setting up for what's a deceivingly fast corner, a left-hander there with a real tight apex in the middle, but you have to cut a lot of speed in order to make that, and you got a lot of steering wheel input into it. Is that what causes it to be such a tricky corner to get around?
I think so, because a lot of drivers think, oh, it looks like a simple sweep, but you said it there, off camber as well as downhill. So if you have a bunch of speed carrying you down, it ends up carrying you into the grass rather than many drivers think planting you onto the racetrack. So that leads to a lot of different drivers just overcooking the corner, going off into that said grass to affect it so much at this point. As Edwards has gone sideways again.
Yeah, he's had a lot of issues down there at that end of the racetrack coming out of White's corner number 10. He's come around, or tried to come around a few times there now, but no worse for the wear. And I guess when you have a 15-second and growing lead, even with all these mistakes that we've seen him make, you can get away with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, very, very lucky as the 25 finally manages to leave pit road. Still has that gap, but that 18 does have a very, very large buffer just in time. So luckily, well, no pun intended, I should say, but he is very lucky that he didn't slam into the pit barriers.
And that would have been a quick way to a backup truck there, and that might have put him in a tough spot. If he has to come down and take a significant time penalty or get a tow or something, that could put him at risk of losing time, a lot of time, maybe even losing a race here. I mean, this is definitely his race to lose. There's no other way to say it at this point, Justin. It's clearly his race to win and to lose if he makes a mistake, but he's got to be smart out there. No one's going to challenge him, right?
Yeah, even with the mistakes, he's still recording times that are dead even just about with Harris. No offense to Harris. It's just, I think at this point, it's no offense to anyone on the racetrack. It's just practice at this point to make sure everyone stays online. I'm not online, rather on the racing lines, I should rather say, for future races here, and thinking about big picture and trying to get experience here if you've never been here before. And at this point, Edwards is just, I think, just testing out the barriers of how much can he push the track and how fast can he keep going while wearing out these tires.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those glorified practice sessions at this point for Austin Edwards. And Gary, I'll ask you this: as a sim racer yourself, and as all of us are sim racers, there's just some things you're more comfortable doing than others. Some guys are more comfortable on the roads. Some guys are more comfortable on oval. How do you sort of build that adaptability or build some of that flexibility into your racing repertoire so you can be better at a road course if you're not really comfortable doing them?
Well, let's see. For me, I just go into a practice session, either with or without people, preferably without people. But in this case, I'd say, just as a general example, say I've done Pro Mazda last season, a couple of races at say Spa, and as much as I don't like that track, I also love it. So I did a couple practice sessions there, got set up to what I felt like was right, and then I decided to run it, and of course, still got into a few incidents, but I pretty much ran or practiced the track to a point to where I could say, okay, here's what I'm comfortable with. Now, how do I fare against other people? So that's essentially, how do I fare against other people, and then what else could I do to, like, ask them for tips or just improve on this part of the track or another part of the raceway. And that's just for road, no less. Oval, I mean, NASCAR-wise, it's pretty obvious. You just, as pretty much everyone says, go fast and turn left and brake occasionally. So it's it takes a very large amount of adaptability if you're going from something from NASCAR to pretty much another track like here, essentially.
All right, Justin, same question to you. I'll put it to you. What do you do?
I kind of prefer actually having more drivers around me on the track when practicing, because it allows you to compare the lines to the best drivers on the track to prepare for the circuit and learn from them as well. In some series you can ask the questions, some you cannot. In a lot of cases it's about learning from what you're seeing on the racetrack from the other drivers around you on the practice lines and trying to adjust from that and go from there. At this case, this is kind of the case at this point for this race, how you're basically seeing, okay, what works, what's working here, what can I do for future races, whether it's in this series or in other series or in other cars potentially that could transfer over in a couple cases.
Well, yeah, prior experience is always a great teacher. I think you know, I've enjoyed road course racing in other sims. I've never really got the hang of it here on iRacing per se, but it's definitely one of those things that practice, and the more time you the more comfortable you get. It's kind of a hard learning curve, personally, and maybe others will feel differently. Some people take to it like a fish to water, and they really love it. But then you put them on a flat track oval like a Martinsville or a New Hampshire, and they're lost. So and I think that's the great thing about iRacing is you get a whole bunch of different competitors with a whole bunch of different skill sets where they feel comfortable and they really shine there. But the real test is where you put them in an environment where they're sort of out of their comfort zone and then really see how they perform. And that's really a true measure of how they stack up against some of the best in the world. But tonight, it's all Austin Edwards right now here at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park as he continues to lead. He had a great battle early on. We lost Aaron Smith earlier. Seemed to be the only other competitor that could keep up pace-wise. But Austin Edwards has cleaned up the laps. He's run much more tidy laps. I've watched him get around here. Not sliding it as much. Of course, he slides it there as I say it, but that lead has jumped up over 20 seconds now.
Just a small commentator's curse there, David. Nice going.
Oh, always. Got to have at least one per show.
Pretty much, yeah. But on the bright side, though, he did manage to hang on to it. So, of course, Harris just still laying in the, essentially laying in the back, just trying to hang on and finish. Same with Austin Edwards. He still hasn't really taken the pit road. He's probably waiting until the halfway point of the race, which is a smart idea to really take a quick fix and repair that truck. But he's really pushing as he's still just a little bit loose. But I'm tempted to say something. I'll wait till he goes through this corner to avoid commentator's curse. He takes to the corners just fine. Apexes very well. Hops up on the curb. Clean exit. Okay. Now I can say it, hopefully, and everything will be fine. If he keeps it out of the wall, he's pretty much, again, still set the pace to win. So, everything is pretty much fine right now. And again, it's just a little bit of a last man standing type of race because Canadian Tire, again, it's very different, but it's also unique in its own way.
Well, that's the beauty of a lot of these tracks that we get to see here in this series and in other series that we cover here on LSRTV is the wide variety of tracks and how challenging each one of them can be, especially when it comes to the road side of things, Justin. The road tracks are always a unique challenge because it's not just turning left in a circle or an oval or a triangle if you're a Pocono. You got left and right. You got different corners, different speeds, a lot of variables. So you really got to be on top of your game. And Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, no outlier to that. It's definitely unique in its own right. And you look at what happens in the real world side of things when the Camping World Truck Series comes here every year. Seemingly, there's always some sort of controversial finish, but the fans love it, and that's why they come out in droves to see them race around this track.
And that's why a lot of people love Canadian Tire Motorsports Park across the iRacing service, whether you come here in a league race or come here or in an official series, is it's such a difficult yet entertaining racetrack where a lot can happen. The mistakes end up amplifying, and if you are up towards the front, there's so many opportunities to try and make a different combination of moves in White's corner to try and win the race. We've seen the bump and run, the push and shove, the crossover, and the bump and spin, basically, in real life so far alone in the past couple of years in the Camping World Truck Series. So, and we've seen similar events happen a couple times in different kinds of races in these trucks at this racetrack. So it's a very fun track to watch a race at and race on.
Well, fun is subjective, depends on which end of it you're on. If you're Austin Edwards right now, you're definitely having fun. If you're some of the guys that have taken an early exit, put it on the truck and said maybe next time, maybe not as fun, but again, fun is relative when you're leading. It's usually more fun, I guess, Gary, right?
I mean, that depends on how much fun you're having with this. It depends, because if you're Austin Edwards, yeah, about then, not so fun if you barely overshoot the curbing and catch the grass a little bit. Doing that, say, if you were to overshoot just a little bit to the left there, coming into that this double right-hander, if he were to catch the grass on the left-hand side, he would not have a lot of fun if he didn't save it. Now, if he did save it, he would be thinking, wow, that was fun. Let's not do that again, though. So it is subjective to really whatever push to what situation you're going on for during the race, essentially.
Justin, I'll ask you this: is we're looking at this race with a little bit different pair of eyes at this point, considering what's going on right now. As we're 21 laps into 64, coming to start 22. If you're Austin Edwards, you're out there all by yourself. Clearly, you have this thing all to yourself. What's the mentality? How do you get through the next 42 laps or so to make sure you finish this thing off and get that win?
Basically, focus on the road in front of you. That's basically it, at least for me. You trying to make sure you focus while you end up not zoning out, because if you zone out, you will end up making a mistake and you'll be woken up by your car in the middle of a tire barrier or bouncing off the wall or colliding with other cars. There's so many races I can remember where that's happened personally to me, to be honest. So if you're Edwards, you cannot afford to zone out if you want to still come away with your third straight win in this series. You got to focus and keep yourself awake, because you can still end up losing this race if you end up hitting a wall. That could end up completely scrambling up your day and blow away what is up to a 33-second lead for that number 18 truck.
I mean, at this point, he's pretty well invested, right? He's already 22 laps in. He knows he's got a win in front of him, so
yeah,
he's not going to walk away, right?
Yeah. No, go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, I was going to say there, I want to walk away at least, Gary. Ian, David, I want to walk away from a victory. If I win a race, it makes me feel a little bit happy. You would be happy to get a victory, Gary.
Yeah, especially since he's won the past 2 weeks, Myrtle Beach and Martinsville.
And pardon me, we got a problem here. It looks like Daryl Harris crashed.
Yikes. The struggle's continuing for Daryl Harris in that 48. I guess the good news at this point, he can't finish worse than third, so at least he's got that consolation in mind as he gets the gearbox churning again, gets back up to speed. But yeah, rough go for Daryl Harris as he continues to navigate around here like a soldier, I guess, at this point. All three of these guys that are still running a soldier's performance to stay running at this point and stay committed to the overall end result of what they're chasing after. But they're all going to be on the podium, so at least there's a bright side there for them to look forward to.
Yeah, that's the bright side, I guess. It looks like as well going to use the quick repair after that headfirst slide into the wall. Now the question is, how much time is he going to lose here? Because right now, remember, he was about a quarter of a track behind. Edwards is already approaching the S's right now with the pace he's been running. So this is going to be a pit delta of around 45, 55 seconds. He's still trying to fight to even get inside the pit box because of how small they are here at CTMP, rather.
That too. I mean, give it another 30 minutes or so. We might even not have the letters left anymore to say what this track is. But CTMP, CMTP, it's all going to be the same thing in the end. For Austin Edwards, I think, well on his way to victory here.
Wait.
There I did it again. The broadcaster's curse is he's just continued to take very creative lines through through that section of the racetrack. Clayton Corner once again bites him, but gosh, I think maybe at this point, maybe it's a little intentional. He's just having a little fun.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. I mean, he does have a few quick fixes to use, so I mean, it does make sense. He's got a very sizable gap, as according to the Delta, about a minute 16 seconds, 17 seconds, and essentially counting as the 48 gets off of pit road. But yeah, I think David should just stop talking about Austin Edwards, maybe, and hopefully he'll be fine for a few laps. I mean, maybe it's just coincidence, but you never really know. It's just the usual commentator's curse. So much for David's one time a race. Now it's apparently twice per one race. I guess it's just specific for CTMP, since it is, again, just a little bit difficult. So I, again, personally never really raced here. I don't think. I have not. So he's going to head to pit road and decide to finally put some fresh tires on that and more than likely take a quick fix.
Probably a good strategy at this point. You look at the race distance, 64 laps. Not sure what the pit window really would be in a I guess, quote-unquote, normal type of race, but, you think maybe you break it down into thirds every 20 laps or so. So you make it a two-stop race like that. So lap 25 here maybe goes another 20 laps and pits for the final time to take tires and service and call it a day. But, Justin, what do you think there?
Well, to compare with the network broadcast with LSRTV with the East Peak Contender Series, when they came here it was about a window of 25 laps even, but then it was a 50-lap race. Here, I would expect maybe a guy like Maverick to try to stretch a couple more laps, possibly as well as Harris, because this is a 64-lap race. It's still in the situation where you might have to be a two-stopper. If you can somehow save just enough fuel to get a one-stopper, it'd be in the best advantage here. But it's leaning towards two stoppers. By the way, the fresh tires not working as Edwards mows the grass.
I was just watching. I said maybe he'll be a little, cautious on the new tires. Wait for them to get up to temperature. No, he just went right for it and took another offline there. Maybe he has to be careful here, guys. He racks up enough incident points by going off the track. It might just give him an early exit anyways, and he's going to take himself out of this win.
Yeah, could be a thing, but yeah, there isn't really a limit actually, so he does have free reign to anger the landscapers as much as he wants, so pretty sure the landscapers may like that, but also not really. I mean, I don't know, but yeah, Austin Edwards definitely not waiting for the tires to get up to temperature, so he's more than likely just trying to have at least enough fun as it is. He does still have a sizable gap, now down to about almost 39.5 seconds.
I was thinking of the officially sanctioned races where you have the incident points and it'll kick you off the track if you hit that limit. Didn't know if they had this in this series, the truck series I ran earlier this year. We had an incident point limit for that league, so a road course is probably the best place to exercise that limit. But good to see that they don't have it, so I guess that's why Austin Edwards can be a little more liberal in his track exploration there, especially through turn 2. Which has given him so much difficulty, but no worse for the wear still. The 18 got all fixed up, looking good, and Justin, now we settle in for the second stint, I guess, if you will, here from Canadian Tire Motorsports Park with 3 drivers out there on the track. Maybe the best battles for second is there's about 14 seconds between those two guys, because other than that, it's over a minute back.
Yeah, Harris, remember, had to use a quick repair when he smashed the wall, so he had to go a bit off strategy in the number 48 truck, and he's running about 5 seconds faster in part because of the fresher tires on the racetrack catching up to Maffitt. So I'm curious to see what happens when Harris reaches the back of Maffitt, if he gets by quickly or if this is going to be a big-time fight.
Judging from what I've seen up to this point, probably not too much fight to be had. I think these guys just want to get to the checkered flag and move on to bigger and better pursuits for the rest of their evening or day, wherever they may be racing from. But you never know. Some guys, I know in my experience, if I was ever out either just sort of running by myself in a race and I hadn't seen anyone for a while and somebody all of a sudden appeared, caught up to me, or I caught up to somebody, it was like kind of a spark, made you feel like a race car driver once again. You see somebody competing out there, you get to race around them, even just for a brief second as you pass them, sort of reinvigorating. So maybe that's what'll happen, is these guys will catch eyesight of each other, Justin, and they'll get a little competitive spark, and maybe we'll see some good racing between the two of them.
Potentially, that's going to be the question. Will that end up happening? Is the case right now. 6 seconds between those two different drivers, with Maffitt currently trying to keep it on the racetrack, running up to about 110 miles per hour at some points, unfortunately for him, while Harris is running the corners up to 10-15 miles per hour quicker through the corners.
And new tires definitely mean a lot. Gives you that extra grip when you go to smash the gasket off these corners. You don't have to fight the rear end as much. You got a lot of good grip back there, so you can really stand on it and drive out of these corners with a lot of confidence. And Austin Edwards putting down some good quality laps here, running about what he ran, faster than what he ran in qualifying there, like you said. So very consistent Austin Edwards is getting around this racetrack, seemingly a place he is very comfortable here. And that just goes to show either a high comfort level or a lot of practice or some combination of both can lead to great results.
Yeah, it can definitely lead to great results to be in your comfort zone. And right now, Harris seems to be in his comfort zone because he's been fairly comfortable on this racetrack. Yes, not as quick of a pace as Edwards, but he's been hitting the lines fairly well. Conservative, but fairly well to go around the racetrack at this point. And even with the quick repair, believe it or not, he's starting to pick up speed compared to Edwards now. You know, at times on this racetrack, he was about a second quicker than Edwards the last time by. So Harris is getting better and better as this race is going on, especially during the second stint.
Well, we'll take this opportunity to step aside and let you view some of our wonderful commercials here that we have at LSRTV. Don't go anywhere. Come right back. Catch more racing action here from Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. It's the DJ Harris Designs Truck Series right here on LSRTV.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real-world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
My name is Steven Corpenos. I'm a senior web developer here at iRacing, and I work on the beta UI. It's funny because iRacing has been around for 10 years, but we want to keep delivering the best possible user experience to our customers, and we've found that the old UI isn't exactly what we're trying to deliver in 2018. We want to use new features and provide the best possible experience when using the sim. One of the projects that I've been working on is some custom heat racing configuration for hosted races. We've been listening to our customers. Everyone's been asking for custom heat races. Maybe you want to tweak a few things with the preset iRacing configurations. Well, now you can using the beta UI. So once you're at the home page of the beta UI, you just go to create a race. Then from there you go to your set race options. And you'll notice here under event types, you can actually choose heat racing. First, I'm going to show you how to create a new format from scratch. You can choose the number of entrants. And as you can see, when I made that change, the change was actually reflected on the right side in the graph. Also, you can use the estimated duration at the bottom of the graph when you're changing the length to see what the total duration of your event will be. In addition, you can customize every aspect of the session information, practice, qualifying, heat races, consolations, and of course, the final feature race. Because the beta UI allows us to develop features that are robust and complex, this feature will be exclusively available on the beta UI. Once you've made all of the changes, you can hit save. Say you forgot what you selected. You can always preview it using the preview format button. We are very excited to release the brand new heat racing configuration feature that will be available in Season 3 of iRacing.
the chair of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Will it be Tim Hogan? It's going to be Christopher DeMeritt at the line. The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
And welcome back to Canadian Tire Motorsports Park for tonight's coverage of the DJ Harris Design Truck Series, I should say, live here on LSRTV. We're on lap number 36. We'll take this opportunity to take our midway break as we cross the halfway point, or just past the halfway point. Take a look at the iRacing Midway Race Break, brought to you by iRacing, the world's premier online racing game with professionally organized racing from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, and more. Take a look at the starting, or should I say the running order here, down to just a few trucks, but it's Austin Edwards out front in the number 18. Daryl Harris running second, one lap down, and the third truck running right now is Kevin Maffitt in the number 42.
Yeah, and so far it's been a lot of attrition, I think, too, David. If we look through the rest here, top 5 slides and probes, then you have Smith, the second, Simon, Atkins, Corin, and then Williamson with the DNS for the race. So it's been at this, as Gary has said a couple times, a last man standing race, I think, today. And it's just a race where attrition has just been the king all day long here at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park.
That's been a look at your iRacing Midway Race Break. For more information on the wide variety of sim racing possibilities online, visit iRacing.com to sign up today. And also want to let you know this racing series is brought to you and title sponsored by DJ Harris Designs, your one-stop shop for iRacing and NASCAR Racing 2003 paints, from replicas to originals. DJ can hook you up. Find them on Trading Paints at tradingpaints.com/profile/247353/Daryl-Harris. So that's DJ Harris Designs, your title sponsor, the DJ Harris Designs Truck Series. And also, coverage of this series is brought to you by Joel Real Timing as well, the official timing software of LSRTV. Whether you spend your time on the sim, behind the wheel, on the pit box, or from the spotter stand, JRT is the go-to software for iRacing, timing, and scoring analytics. Get yourself a basic download for free, or get the pro version today at joel-real-timing.com. Joel Real Timing, the official timing software of LSRTV, bringing you all the statistics that we see here on display tonight for the DJ Harris Truck Series at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. I'm David Schildhouse, joined by Gary Weaver, Justin Prince, and Brett Wheeler on the Wheels of Steel. Hanging in there, bringing you all the laps here tonight. 64 on the docket. We're going to bring them all to you here as we're on lap number 38. And Justin, you know, it's not the ideal situation, but it is what it is. It's racing, and these guys are still out here competing hard, even if they're not on the lead lap and there isn't necessarily a win in sight, but that's really the heart of competition.
Yeah, it's just the heart of the competition at this point, to race until the end. You started the race, may as well try and finish, as Harris just spun off the racetrack to go back corner and just slammed his right side hard into the wall. And it's been getting worse and worse right now for him, and Maffitt going off the racetrack, adding on to his damage, completely pancaked the right side, David.
And at the same time, sorry, David, at the same time that happened, Austin Edwards had also spun out from the double right-hander, so he managed to keep it going, kept it off the wall, just a donut, and then, of course, he's still going, so not adding to some of the damage that he already has.
Yeah, a two-spin and one-lap sort of deal there. Austin Edwards, not his first time around, or not his first time trying to get around, as he's unrelenting in his pace around Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. Got a healthy lead, definitely nothing to lose there with an innocent spin, but he's not giving up. He's not putting the old 85 to 90% effort out there. He's putting 100% effort out at this point still, even with the one-lap lead to his credit. So pushing hard, and again, I think maybe treating this as a glorified practice session, as no real threat from the other two competitors remaining to take the lead away. But even still, you don't want to make that one mistake and run out of fast repairs, all of a sudden find yourself on the hook with no truck left to race.
Yeah, remember, there's the 3 quick repair limit, essentially, and as we've seen throughout the series so far, people have been selective on when they use them to repair their damage. A majority of the field electing to just keep the trucks the way they are and race around until you get to your next pit stop window, which is until lap 50. Save it until then. And remember, Harris has had to come in early once already. Maffitt already had to get some repairs done to get his quick repair done. Edwards has already used at least one quick repair. Will probably use a second one when he comes in. If you run out of quick repairs and say you have a damage big enough to blow your engine, for example, your race is done.
It's a fine line to traverse here around the racetrack. You want to go fast. You want to have fun. And you know you got a couple of mulligans in the back pocket, but doesn't mean you necessarily have to use them. And to your point, as you said, Justin, if you blow up that engine, that's really going to be catastrophic. And you know, you think about if you're Austin Edwards, how sheepish would you feel when you had a 1-lap lead and you made a silly mistake, as we've seen him make a few off-track excursions already, Gary, to not come home with the checkered flag in your hand?
Yeah, if Austin continues doing what he's doing right now, it's not going to go too well for him if he's going to be forcing himself to use those faster pairs. So again, it's good to have a few in his back pocket, but how much do you want to really burn through those? Essentially, burning a hole in your pocket. Instead with money, it's with faster pairs.
Yeah, if we all had to fix these simulated race vehicles with real money, I think people on iRacing would drive a lot differently. And some people have tried to beat that mentality into their competitors as well. Say, hey, just pretend you got to fix it with your own money. Obviously, that doesn't work because you really don't have to, and you can go tear up all the equipment you want to. You just hit the right buttons, and you got a new one in your garage to drive. But imagine just in a world where you had simulated race car money, wouldn't that be?
I think you were cutting out a little bit during your question, but I kind of get where you're trying to go with there. You got to imagine the world. Even if it's an imaginary race car, or so to speak, apologies to phrase it like that, you kind of want to finish the race after how long it's already been behind the wheel. You don't want to be that person after an hour and a half and say with 5 laps to go, you end up wrecking the truck. Same case on multiple different racetracks. You want to be, if you have the time invested, you want to finish up the race, whether it's a real world car or what you have right now with these trucks here on the virtual iRacing service.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. You got me loud and clear now, Justin.
Yes, in fact, we do. And remember, this is still a test with the skill. Part of why Edwards is so comfortable in what we've seen throughout the races in this series is, remember, he has the experience with the eNASCAR Ignite Series, where he was one of the stronger drivers for that series. So he's one of the more younger, up-and-coming drivers in the iRacing service as well. Compare that to the different drivers where you have Darrell Harris, who we have seen the multiple different Harrises, really, with that last name, rather, be a big part of the iRacing Oval community. Then you have guys like Kevin Maffitt, who is now in the pits, by the way, getting experience and seeing some of our first-time exposure with drivers like Maffitt onto the broadcast side of things across iRacing. So there's various different levels of skill across these races in this series, regardless of the track so far.
Yeah, and you talk about up-and-coming drivers and a test of skill, and I think you're 100% right. I think that's a great point to make. A situation like this where it's not necessarily what you expected, you don't have the number of competitors out there that you may otherwise normally get, and puts you in a different sort of situation where you have to develop and train yourself to be mentally disciplined, to continue making laps, to continue making competitive laps, and not make a mistake that throws away a good finish. So that's really a skill set that a lot of race car drivers don't get the opportunity to put themselves in and take advantage of, to build that skill set itself. So this could definitely be leveraged for future development for the driver that's in the right kind of mindset.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be helping out, especially, like you mentioned, just for mindsets, for another situation like this, if they do ever come across one in their time in their iRacing career. So it's Austin Edwards, who's, again, so comfortable with this racetrack that he decides that he could maybe just see what could work or what couldn't work. Maybe sometimes could see what he can or can't save. But yeah, his lap times essentially were the best in practice, actually. Just going to double check that. Second best in practice, actually, by 2/10, and then 4/10 off in qualifying. So essentially, he's pretty much the best driver here left on the racetrack right now. So again, test of skill and just a test to see how well he can handle this raceway.
Mental fortitude, the mental strength to get through a simulated race environment is definitely something that every sim racer should strive to develop further. It's not just what you do with your hands and your feet. It's what's between the ears that counts as well. I should say, a lot in these races, Justin. You got to be strong up in the cranium section in order to win these races. Not even just run well, but win them.
And that's what I meant a little bit before, involving zoning out while you're behind the wheel and ending up losing a race like that. You need to have the mental strength to keep yourself focused behind the wheel and get these laps turned with the best pattern, because Martin Truex Jr. said it best. Even the matter of a couple inches will end up ruining your lap times by that much. That was in reference at the time to Texas about a year ago. It still counts for track, especially road courses, where you have to hit the same marks every single time around the racetrack. You have to hit those said marks, or else you're going to end up losing the race or not having a truck to finish.
That's a good point as well. It's a very good point. As we watch Austin Edwards continue to work around this racetrack, and I know I've said it a few times as we're at 20 laps to go now, he continues to push it out there. He's not taking it easy. He's not just lollygagging around the racetrack. We see him up on two wheels. He's attacking the curbs. He's sliding the rear end around on these corners and getting after. We've seen him half spin it, full spin it. He's done everything that you can aside from stuff it into the barrier at this point. But again, I think he's taking, he's sideways on power there. As I think we'll probably expect to see him hit the pits maybe in the next 5 to 6 laps. He pitted at lap 25. I would imagine he'll come down around lap 50, same sort of length of stint there, and ride it out to the finish.
Yeah, I think so too at this point. And now I'm starting to get more and more curious for the rest of the competition. In that similar case, Harris still has to take a second pit stop and is getting really slick on the racetrack, losing more and more time, falling to the 123 bracket in terms of his lap times, and going off into the grass, battling the truck through the entry and exits right now. So him and Edwards, I would expect to come in very soon to get fresh tires.
Gary, we highlighted it earlier, the security that new tires will give you as you try and get the power down on exit of these corners. It can really add a lot of time to your lap, and for a guy like Darrell Harris, struggled tonight for sure. He had his own battles out there on the racetrack, most of it between himself and the racetrack, not necessarily with the other drivers. He's probably just holding on for dear life at this point, and can't wait to get those new tires onto that number 48.
Yeah, I mentioned at the start of the show is that you have to, in this case, just race the track and not yourself, and more of a race the track and not anyone else on the racetrack. So that usually comes into play at other oval tracks like Dover, or as far as I know, Dover is the only track that I can actually think of, since of course it is, again, it's one of those most commonly called self-cleaning tracks because of all the banking for it. But for a road course like this, again, just race the track and not yourself, as again, it's not really a common track that everybody goes to, like all the series. For example, I believe Xfinity and the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series, they both go to Watkins Glen, and I believe Sonoma, not sure for the Xfinity Series, but that would actually be quite interesting to see. So just again, to reiterate, race the track, not anyone else on it, and you should be fine.
Road course racing in general, especially when it comes to the top 3 NASCAR series that you mentioned, I'm of the opinion there isn't enough of it. And Justin, I'll put it to you. Do you think that the NASCAR Monster Energy Cup Series could use more road course racing, or are the couple tracks, and now with the addition of the Roval this year, enough?
I think you can add maybe 1 or 2 more road courses. The Roval, I think, should stay to Charlotte, as in basically have that as one of the possible crown jewels for the future, to have that Roval race at Charlotte. I think for having more road courses, meanwhile, there's a couple different options, of course, using the Xfinity Series. Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, remember, they are currently trying to get a cup date at times. So you've seen the articles about that and the discussions about future tracks wanting to get in for 2020. So I wouldn't be surprised seeing that, or say Road America, for example, or Mid-Ohio stepping in and being a part of the cup racing circuit on the road course side to add a little more variance throughout the season, at least for the regular season portion.
That's a good point. When the schedule opens up, I guess, in 2020, when they can really change some things, when their obligations as they currently stand are open for discussions, then they can certainly change things up, and you might see some new tracks added to the schedule. It's certainly a big deal to get a cup date added to your venue, whether you're Las Vegas, who got a second cup date, or Canadian Tire Motorsports Park trying to get a cup date. It's a big deal to get the Cup Series to come to your venue, and I think this track would be a great one for the Cup Series to go to. I think that Mid-Ohio would be interesting to see Cup cars on because that always seems to provide a good race product. And I think NASCAR's done a good job of leveraging the lower series, the Truck Series here at CTMP, and sending the Xfinity Series to Road America and Mid-Ohio as sort of testers to see if stock car racing in general works on those types of tracks. And I think that they've proven out by this point, Gary, that it does.
Yeah, it definitely does, and it proves, again, just so much more excitement than expected. So, I don't think we've even seen I don't think we've seen any top 3 NASCAR series, in fact, head to Montreal. That would actually be quite interesting to see.
To correct you down, Gary, this was around, remember, they went to Montreal with the now Xfinity Series back in the late 2000s, early 2010s.
That is
and
true.
There was possibility, remember, too, that the Cup Series could have went over there if things went differently in terms of negotiations around that time when the contracts led up for, at the time, the Napa Auto Parts 200 down at Gil Villeneuve. Pardon me if I'm mispronouncing my French there.
I'll probably for even trying it.
So that could have been a possibility as well. This is the market with Canada where you can possibly see the Cup Series. I wouldn't be surprised trying to at least have one date north of the border to have that potential to break into the market outside of just the Pinty Series and the stop with in the Camping World Truck Series.
Yeah, these is at all were favorite races to watch. I remember the very controversial finish involving Robbie Gordon, where he was fairly confident he had won that race after his little scrap with Marcos Ambrose. And that was always a favorite memory of mine as a Robbie Gordon supporter. That was fun to watch. And again, they had great finishes there. Boris said getting the win, you know, and all the drama and controversy that would unfold in the final chicane there leading onto the front straightaway. You know, I would love to see them explore more road course options out there because I think it brings such unique racing. We even saw it this year at the Roval. A relative unknown, and people weren't really sure what to expect, but my goodness, we really got a great show, and it came down to the final corner, the final lap, and a bonsai type of move by Jimmy Johnson that took out the 2 leaders, and it was really exciting. So I think the format has proven itself out to work well, and I would be hopeful that NASCAR would add more road course racing to all 3 series, especially the Cup side, to break things up as we look at a series chock full of 1.5 milers, which people don't always have the most favorable opinion of, and the new aero package that's coming next year as well could break that up. But when you get down to it, I think short track racing and road course racing are some things that we could use some more of.
Yeah, I agree, especially the short track movement starting to grow more and more to add more action, especially with the great finish at Martinsville, to give a shout out to Joey Logano for the bump and run. But to get to the race itself on your screen, the pit window is open because Darrell Harris went into the pits for his lap 47, with Edwards now approaching lap 50. I wouldn't be surprised if he elects to go into the pit lane, as Kevin Maffitt, he has also, looks like might have gone off track a bit and lost even more so time, still holding on to third.
Give a call to Maffitt. I mean, he's running third. He's 3 laps off the pace, but he's still out there logging laps, and you got to tip your cap to all 3 drivers that are still out there running: Austin Edwards, Darrell Harris, and Kevin Maffitt. They got my respect as race car drivers for sure for sticking through this tough times. Not the most fun situation to find yourself in when you don't have a lot of competitors to run around, especially on a very challenging course like Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. But they're still out there doing it, so they have my respect as competitors to go out there and continue to log laps.
Yeah, Gary's for sure.
Yeah, it's sorry, Justin, but yeah, it's and just still respect for them just continuing on, and especially for Austin Edwards. I mean, as much as he probably wants to have somebody, whoa, never mind, will he save it? He does. That's the second time he almost first time actually almost had an incident over here, and almost made it 2 times. But yeah, for Austin Edwards, I'm pretty sure as much as he wants to have more competition, he still wants to get this win just so he can say, hey, I won 3 weeks in a row. So he's definitely going to be trying to set his pace for the championship later this season.
Yeah, 3 in a row would be sweet for him. And Justin, I'll ask you this. When you come out and you win a race like this where we're looking at what we see and the picture tells the story, but you still win, does that, as Edwards comes to pit road now, he digs hard onto the pit road and he'll take his service as expected here at lap 50. When you win a race like this, does it I don't know, does it cheapen the win? I don't know if that's the right word. Does it make it less exciting to win a race like this?
That's a tough question to answer because it depends on the person, but for some, yes, it does. Because some people like to fight hard for victories, others, this is unfortunately one of those circumstances. We see this sometimes, for example, in the NASCAR iRacing series when there might be technical issues that happen that give somebody a win, or somebody ends up causing an incident that ends up giving somebody a win after say the driver gets involved in an incident and dominates the race. At this point, Edwards, he's going to be happy to get the victory because his nickname, of course, is First Place Ace. But at the same time, I'm not sure how we'll feel about the circumstances, to me, David.
First Place Ace. That's a pretty cool nickname. I like that one. It gives you a lot to live up to, Gary, if you got a nickname like that, because anything less than first place, not really living up to your name now, are you?
I mean, he didn't finish first in the quite literal first race of the season, but on the bright side, he is making, I don't think he even took place in the first race of the season, actually, but nonetheless, though, he is still making his name known out there. So especially like Justin mentioned earlier, with coming up through the Ignite series, he's definitely starting to show potential, that he's got all this potential for him. And of course, if I were a team owner, then I would definitely pick him up, because that is definitely a driver that would be a very great representative, especially with a nickname like that. And then also he has, at least almost for the time being, he could have 3 race results as of right now, or at least as of a little bit later. He could have those 3 race wins to back it up.
Yeah, always able to back it up is that's a good place to be. If you can back up the nickname, you know, and a win is a win. Listen, throughout the course of my sim racing career, I didn't win very many races. I won a few here and there, sparingly, and as I got older, and like most race car drivers, sort of faded into obscurity, the race wins didn't come as often. And now I've transitioned into the broadcast booth, like a lot of them do. So I guess, you know, I can make up a nickname for myself. But at this point, if you're Austin Edwards, a very bright future, winning or running really well in the Ignite series, making a lot of news and headlines there, and coming out and winning a lot of races here in this series. You know, when you win a lot of races, it's just a lot of momentum, Justin. So when you come into a race and you feel real good, you got a lot of momentum on your side and a lot of wins to your credit, it makes you feel really comfortable, even if it's not a track that you feel that good about.
Yeah, it makes you feel really comfortable, as my goodness, speaking about not feeling comfortable, he had to really dodge his way around Kevin Moffitt just now to go to his left because of the speed difference between the two of them. That broke his comfort zone, I think, just now, though, David.
Yeah, a little tense moment there, getting down into a real tough braking zone. Carrying a lot of speed, you got to get slowed down for that double right-hander, setting up for the Mario Andretti straightaway, and he got through it without any incident, did an okay job. I think Moffitt looked up and saw him coming and did his best to sort of get out of the way, but yeah, Edwards came in there charging with a lot of steam. They made it work, got away with it. If there were more trucks out there, I'm not sure that would have ended as well as it did, but, you know, when you got a 1-lap lead, I guess you can take a little bit of a riskier approach to passing a guy.
Yeah, especially since now it's going to be a 2-lap lead, I believe. Not sure about yet. Now it's still 1 lap, as Harris is still quite a ways away, quite a little bit away in front of it. But nonetheless, though, for Edwards, he's definitely still being cautious for the time being. He's kept out of the tire barrier, but not so much for the grass. So landscapers are going to be pretty busy after this race.
That might be an invoice sent from the landscaping crew to Austin Edwards' household after this one for as much time as he's gone through the grass. I don't know. They might have to make him pay for that one, but doing a nice job nonetheless. And I think as the laps have wound down here, Justin, he's kind of been a little more careful. I haven't seen him go off track as much as we saw in the earlier stages of this race.
Yeah, he's gotten more stable as the race has gone on, because remember, in the first stint, he was sliding and drifting a lot, even with the close battles with Aaron Smith II. As the race has gone on, he's gotten more comfortable. Yes, he's at times had basically a drift show, but as the race has gone on, he's learned the track more and more and more, has slipped a lot less on the exits, still has to bob his wheel a bit to the left, for example, to straighten out the truck during the right-handers, but he's gotten much more stable with this track the more he has gone around and logged the laps today with this 1 lap lead.
That shows me what we were talking about earlier as far as him using this as a glorified test session, that it's working. He's getting faster. He's getting more consistent. He's putting down great lap times. I've been watching him, especially on his new tires here. 4 laps into his new tire run. Still running really good lap times, 1:19 last time by. So keeping the pace really nice and tidy. And that goes to what he's learning, where he can get away with things, where he can't get away with things. That's almost more valuable, when, especially to learning a road course. I remember, a million years ago when I was learning how to drive around Watkins Glen or Sonoma back on another sim. It took me a lot of time, and I had to learn through my mistakes as to what speed I could carry and what I could not get away with when it came to a certain corner. And so it appears Austin Edwards is applying the same mentality here and learning from his mistakes, which is a huge credit to him.
Yeah, it's a great job for Austin Edwards to, again, stick it out and learn from what you can and can't do at certain parts of the racetrack here, and especially at this track, even though it's only usually a one-time thing for most people. I mean, again, I've never raced here, and I don't think I ever will. I'm going to regret saying that, because I probably will at least one time, but nonetheless, though, for Austin Edwards, yeah, he learned to know where he can and can't push it. Like, for example, right here, goodness, it gets a little bit sideways every single time, but he still manages to hang on to it. Just a certain first sector, I guess, is what this would be. And then just coming off of this corner here, gets a little bit, he got a little bit of the grass a few times coming off of that very corner, but he still managed to hang on to it. And then very high speed corner, hard on the brakes, and then a double right-hander. I mean, it's just absolutely amazing for him to figure out where he can go, what he can do in certain parts of this racetrack.
You think about all the vehicle dynamics at play as you work around a lap here at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. The elevation changes is what makes it really challenging, and Justin, you spoke to this earlier of why some of these corners are more challenging than others. It's the elevation change. If you're going downhill, you're carrying momentum. That weight transfers to the front of the race truck over the front wheels, which are your steering wheels. You're trying to bleed off speed with the brakes. The brakes are up front as well, a little bit of brake in the rear, but a lot of brake cranked into the front. The steering wheels have a lot of weight placed over them, and the light end, or the rear end, gets really light, I should say. So when it comes to hustling a race truck around this track, that's not the only place that makes it really difficult, but that is one of the big things that a driver has to be aware of, is the vehicle dynamics when they set up their approach to each one of these corners.
Yeah, and that affects big time, as you mentioned there. So you can't just take every single corner the exact same. There's all different parameters you got to think about, and all those different factors to how you take these corners and how you take the speeds. Plus, you got to factor in the tire wear, how hot the track temperature is, and how the race is basically going in terms of how the track's rubbered up, for example. And that's what I think Edwards has adjusted to a lot the most. Harris has gotten much more better in terms of adjusting to that. I think if this race restarted now, Harris might say only be 5-10 seconds back maybe, but Edwards at this point, with how much better Harris has gone by as the race has gone on. So things you learn as the race has gone on with the different parameters around you, but it's about trying to make those adjustments to handle all the factors you mentioned too.
Well, we're inside of 10 laps to go now, and take a moment before we get to the conclusion of this one, just sort of look forward for the rest of this series, what the schedule looks like. Get back to a little more forgiving racetrack next week. They'll head to Charlotte Motor Speedway for 125 lapper there. They got Darlington after that, Texas. So a couple of cookie cutter mile and a half with Darlington thrown into the middle. So a nice 3-race stretch there where these guys are probably going to be very thankful to get off the road and back to a more traditional oval. Yeah,
especially after this long race, especially for Austin Edwards. I mean, he's as much as he's probably having fun with this and would love essentially a air quote free win, then I'm pretty sure he's definitely going to be looking forward to racing against the drivers on a more competitive track for next week, especially Charlotte, since that's going to be, again, like you mentioned, David, a little bit of a cookie cutter track, but I mean, it's a track where you have slipstream being used. I mean, pit strategy, the occasional tri-oval grass getting caught on the left side of your tires. So essentially, you don't really escape that for a few weeks, especially after Martinsville. So it's going to be quite interesting to see how everything plays out for next week.
And Charlotte's one of those tracks where you seemingly always get a really good race anyways. People are much more comfortable. Charlotte's a track that comes free with the iRacing service, so everybody gets it right off the bat, and it's a track that you get exposed to right away. So it's definitely one of those sort of racetracks that you feel a lot more comfortable, especially compared to a place like Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. And so, Justin, I think for next week, a lot of drivers maybe just hoping to get through the week and get to that point so they can show up at a racetrack they feel better about and can put on a really good show.
Yeah, in terms of Charlotte, that's going to be a competitive race when that gets underway for the DJ Harris Designs Truck Series for sure, because there's so many opportunities to try and pass, and how much momentum plays a factor in at a track like Charlotte, where you have to make sure you keep the truck undamaged, have strong runs across the track, and possibly can have multiple lines work to battle for the race win. So that's going to be an entertaining race, I think, with Charlotte for sure.
Yeah, I can't really recall too many races I've witnessed at Charlotte or even Texas, where they go in a few weeks after that, that weren't entertaining or fun to watch or be a part of. It's just sort of part and parcel with that type of track. You got people out there, they can run their own lane. You got everyone sort of running together, and it's certainly a lower level of difficulty than trying to wheel it around 10 turns here up in Canada. But Austin Edwards has done a masterful job, as he's got 58 up on the board, starting lap 59. So 5 laps to go here as we're closing in on the end of this thing, Gary. He's got to be feeling good, probably a little bit tired. We'll talk to him after the race. We'll talk to your top 3 if they're available to get their thoughts on tonight's event. But Austin Edwards still out front, looking real good.
Yeah, Austin Edwards wants to finish this race to completion, and that's the best he can, especially for Austin Edwards. I mean, he's been wheeling that thing for pretty much this entire race, almost essentially, well, at least the last time at the line, almost 1.5 hours, or more specifically 1 hour, 22 minutes, and 49 seconds. And that's not including the few decimals just after that. So definitely would be just a little bit sore the shoulders after this if I were to do that. And it's, again, just great respect to the drivers that stayed here to finish out this event as best as possible.
I witnessed a 81-lap race a week ago at Bathurst. That was about a 3-hour event. That was a very long event. A lot of racing action up there on Mount Panorama, but a lot of fun. Here, hour and a half around Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, still going to be pretty exhausted to make all these laps that these guys have made, and they haven't even had the added layer of difficulty of really a lot of competition around them. We saw earlier on Aaron Smith, the only other guy in town that seemingly had the pace to keep up with Austin Edwards and Justin. He fell by the wayside early on in the event. So it's really been Austin Edwards just out there making laps by himself. But again, he's going to make all the laps barring some catastrophe, and he's got to feel good about that.
Yeah, he's got to be feeling good about being able to survive around this racetrack for the past hour and a half plus, to be able to pull away as much as he has, and to be able to have the consistency that he has to get around this racetrack to win by 1 lap plus on this track, potentially up to 2 pending mistakes from Daryl Harris. He's got to be definitely proud to come away with the victory in this one, to at least log all 64. I mean,
yeah, there's almost a certain extra little bit of triumph or pride to be said when you win one of these types of races, as we called it, a last man standing, I think is what you said, Gary. Race of attrition. It means a little bit more when you say, yeah, I stuck it out and I won it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said. So that's especially what it comes down to. Again, race the track and not yourself especially. I think that's just more for just a few tracks. But for Canadian Tire in particular, it's actually the first thing that I've decided to call a last man standing, since, again, with all the from what we've seen, the different driving styles that some people have to take to this raceway, is that it's there's 3 laps to go for Austin Edwards. It's, again, just interesting, and it's not exactly a common road course that everybody would go to, like, again, Watkins Glen or Sonoma.
You talk about last man standing. That's all the big fad right now in video games, Battle Royale, 1 versus 99, right, Justin? That's you see that in Fortnite and PUBG, and even Call of Duty now has the blackout mode. Last man standing here on iRacing, it's our own Battle Royale mode here for the DJ Harris Design Truck Series, and it looks like Austin Edwards is going to be the guy that comes out with the proverbial chicken dinner.
yeah, that's going to be a pretty tasty chicken dinner for sure. Just at this point, anything can happen, though. I'm just going to put that out there. Anything can happen on a road course like this at this point, with him going to have about few more laps to just log his way around and try and make sure he secures this victory.
As Gary just sort of suggested to me off microphone, the best last man standing would be going around the ring for one lap. Gary, do you care to explain that a little bit further?
I mean, in a way, I'm not wrong. 2 laps to go for Austin Edwards. He's, I believe, 3 actually. Now that I double-check the numbers, gonna wait for it to cross the line. Yep, 3 to go. Thanks to the confirmation from our producer. But yeah, 3 laps to go for Austin Edwards. But as far as best last man standing for the ring for one lap, I mean, in a way, I'm not wrong. The maximum cars we do have on iRacing could be roughly 62 or 64. 64, just to so I mean, that would be pretty interesting. I mean, just choose a layout that's not the Grand Prix and throw everybody on there in a different class or whatever class that they want to choose within limits for about 1 laps and see what could happen.
I would show up to watch that, at least for a little bit, depending on how long how long it took for them to finally finish the thing off. But could be as little as 8 minutes, I guess. So I'd probably stick around for the whole thing. But boy, that would be fun. And Brett Wheeler giving his 2 cents on it, saying throw 40 cars on Eldora for a 1-lap dash. My gosh, that would certainly be something. So Brett with a good idea.
That race would end very quickly, obviously, within about 20 seconds for the lap times. But I would say put 100 cars on, say, the Legends Oval at Charlotte, and see how they can handle the racetrack, and see who will come out with the victory with 100 cars. I think it would be starting 6 wide on a restart.
Do we have enough space for that? I don't think we do.
You can make it work.
That would be absolutely diabolical. And again, I would probably show up to watch it. Sprint cars at the Roval. Brett's thrown out as well.
I mean, that would
could be interesting.
Yeah, that would actually be interesting. Or probably the main key thing. Let's see, we have, essentially, unofficially 4 NASCAR Monster Energy Cup cars as Austin Edwards works his way to somewhere around 1.75 laps to go, roughly. But let's see, Roval, we have about, what, a 6-car limit, 5-car limit. So let's see, Truck Series, at least 1 car of the Truck Series, 1 car of the Xfinity Series, and all 3 or all 2 of the, at least 2 of the Cup cars, and throw them onto the Roval, see how they would do. That would be quite interesting.
Some multi-class NASCAR racing. That would certainly be interesting to see and something to fantasize about. Maybe somebody will be inspired by our discussion here to go and set up a server of their own and see how chaotic that could be. But the chaos is about to end here at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park as Austin Edwards works off the final corner. White flag is going to be in the air one more time around for the driver of the number 18 as he will put this thing in the record books. Now at this point, it's all his.
All his as long as he keeps it on the racetrack, because if he has to, at one point, have to potentially go into a DNF situation where he has to go into a tow truck, that will open up the win for Daryl Harris, because it's about 1.5 laps to come around the racetrack with the tow truck, get the repairs done, then come back on the racetrack. So he's got to still make sure he gets to the finish line to make sure he secures this victory 100%.
Well, it's been a long one. It's been an entertaining one as we jump on board with Austin Edwards here as he works through and sets up for the Mario Andretti straightaway. And Gary, it's been an interesting one to watch, but at the end of the day, somebody had to make 64 laps, and in this case, it's going to be Austin Edwards.
Yeah, it's going to be Austin Edwards, and of course, unofficially Daniel Harris and Kevin Maffitt, as of course they're 1 and 3 laps down respectively, but they will be able to complete the race, not to the full 64, but on the bright side, they can say that they've bested everybody else, and finally will be able to make it to the end.
Working through the final corners for the last time. It's going to be checkered flag in the air. He fought long and hard, and he's going to get some hardware to show for his troubles here tonight. Austin Edwards across the checkered line here. Takes the flag, takes the win. Whew, boy, we're excited to have this one finished. It's going to be an interesting discussion with your top 3 here once they cycle all around. But Austin Edwards, with a total time of 1 hour 30 minutes, gets it done. 64 laps here at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. He's going to be your winner here tonight. The DJ Harris Design Truck Series. Daryl Harris will work his way around to finish second eventually, and it'll be Kevin Maffitt completing the podium in third.
Yeah, strong run from Austin Edwards for start to finish. Had his troubles in that first stint, as mentioned, but able to learn as the track went on to get stronger and get more consistent as the race went on. During his last stint before the final pit stop, he was able to pick up an extra few seconds per lap compared to what he was doing the first stint. So good to see him learn as he went to be able to come away with the victory and make sure he didn't have to use a tow.
All right, we will wrap things up here on the other side of the commercial break. Don't go anywhere. You're going to get to talk to our top 3 finishers, hopefully, or at least from our winner. I see Austin Edwards already available to talk to, so we'll hear from him. We'll hear from second place, maybe get Kevin Maffett in here as well to talk to them. On the other side of the commercial break, you've been watching the DJ Harris Truck Series on LSRTV. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of LSRTV and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Live Sim Racing LLC and iRacing.com Motorsport Simulations. LSRTV would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.
And welcome back to the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park for LSRTV's continuing coverage of the DJ Harris Designs Truck Series. Tonight was round number 4 for 64 laps around the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, and when it was all said and done, the win came down to Austin Edwards taking the win. Started second, brought it home first. Short field tonight, but they all put up a fight, and in the end, 3 guys took the checkered flag. Second place it's going to go to Daryl Harris after starting 10th, so a nice run for him, up 8 spots. Third place, final finisher here tonight, Kevin Maffett in third. Joseph Schlees is going to come home in 4th. Zach Prost in 5th. Aaron Smith home in 6th.
And 7th spot, it was Lance Simon able to come away in the 04 truck, 61 laps down. Caden Atkins, after missing the start, ended up having to start from the pit, still logged laps to get himself to 8th spot in the finishing order. Jordan Corrin finished off in 9th, and Dalton Williamson, who was a few seconds off the pace in terms of qualifying with a 1:22 and had been having an up and down practice, went with the do not start situation.
There's a look at your LSRTV finishing results here from Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, and well, we won't delay it anymore. We want to talk to the guy that won the race. That's Austin Edwards. Sure, he's got a lot to say after his 64-lap tour of Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, and we'll bring it Austin. I don't want to say any win was easy, but you certainly didn't have a lot of challenge out there tonight. How does it feel to win a race like this?
Yeah, it was a little unfortunate that we couldn't get the car count we wanted. Next week will be Charlotte, so we'll definitely get some car count there. After about lap 15, when Aaron left, I pretty much knew that it was just going to be one big open practice session for me since I had a big enough gap on second. So I just used that opportunity to just push the truck over its limit, which, as you guys saw, I spun multiple times. Just exploring the truck and the track a little bit, trying to get more used to it, just in preparation for Charlotte and the rest of the tracks for the rest of the year. It was really fun just getting 64 laps of just seat time, but it was unfortunate that Aaron and the rest of the guys had to leave. So it is another win. That's 3 in a row for me, but hopefully next time we'll have some more competition and I'll be able to see or give you guys some good racing.
That's kind of what we were surmising up in the broadcast booth, is that you were treating it as an open test session just to improve your racecraft, especially on the road course. Certainly not an easy one to get around here. Just tell the fans watching at home how challenging this racetrack really is.
It's something else. I mean, that track was normally meant for actual road course cars. You get these trucks on here. It's just a lot of horsepower, not a lot of handling. You got a lot of elevation changes, lot of bumps in the track that you guys probably can't see from the outside, but it really shakes us from the inside. There's just a lot of things to it. The sharp turns, there's giant turns, there's that one hill that's just downhill to the left. You saw me hitting the bump quite a bit there, and that goes straight into a sharp turn. So the track just is very dynamic. There's a lot of things you have to adapt to, and that's something that I learned along the way in my basically open practice session.
Well, you definitely got a nice little bit of recognition for your efforts here tonight, 64 laps. You feel pretty tired after that?
Not really. I mean, I'm a little bit tired being I was getting that truck sideways for a little while, but with about 10 laps to go, that's when I decided to calm down, not treat it as a practice session, just make sure I'd make it to the finish, cleanly. So from there, I calmed down, just made sure I didn't waste too much of my energy, and just made it to finish clean.
Well, you got yourself a checkered flag again. A good result to come out of that effort here tonight, and I'll give you the opportunity to say hello to friends, family, sponsors, and anyone else who helps get you here to the racetrack.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly who's watching right now, but some of you might know me. Hi, for whoever that is. Um, I'd just like to say thanks to GJ Harris Design for putting up the truck series, Team Corin for inviting me to it. It's pretty cool to come into here and get 3 wins in a row. And then, of course, iRacing for having this amazing simulator that we can all race on and that you watched just today.
And there you have it, folks. Your winner here tonight, Austin Edwards. We'll look forward to seeing you next week at Charlotte.
Awesome. Thank you.
Very happy winner indeed. And we'll move on to hearing from our second place finisher, Daryl Harris, and Justin Prince has caught up with him.
Thank you very much, David. Daryl Harris now joins us in the broadcast booth, coming away second, a full lap down. Daryl, how are you feeling about this race tonight?
Well, really, I'm glad to have finished it cleanly. This track is a big struggle for me. I've never had good finishes here, but yeah, tiring. That's probably, in one word to sum it up, it was tiring. So could have been a lot cleaner, but I had a lot of fun. And congrats to Austin and also Kevin for sticking around with us.
Yeah, with this race, how difficult was it to keep your focus with the way it was trending towards tonight, while also making sure it stayed on the racetrack to be able to stay until all the way to the checkered flag?
It was tough. There was a few different things I was having issues with. My pedals kept sliding around, so sometimes I was throwing the truck around trying to get my pedals back straight and moved around. And after a little bit, like, everybody dropped off, and so I knew, like, just like everybody else, knew it was going to be a long race, so you just had to kind of settle in. And so, yeah, it was a lot of fun, but at the end of the day, I'm kind of glad to get over with.
Yeah, that's good there. Apologies for the background situation there, but real quickly, of course, Charlotte coming right on up. How do you feel about Charlotte and shifting back over to the oval side?
Well, I haven't really done anything with Charlotte in terms of NASCAR, like trucks or Cup or anything like that. I've won a few street stock races and stuff like that, the smaller stuff, but it's treated me really well. So that's kind of more my style. Road courses are not my friends, so yeah, hopefully we'll have a better turnout next week. And thanks to the guys that did show up tonight.
Is there anyone else you want to thank before you let you go?
I'd like to thank Jordan for not only putting me as the host of the series, but also hosting these sessions. I want to say hi to my family and all the cancer patients or former cancer patients. Everybody has gone through or currently is going through cancer. They have a tough battle. And it is October, so we might as well attribute them, because they have a lot harder work to do than we do. So yeah, I think that's really it. Just it's always fun running a pink or peach cancer schemes and stuff like that, trying to support those that are currently going through the battle or have gone through the battle.
That's absolutely a good cause to be trying to raise awareness and funds for. Thank you very much for the time. And Daryl, congratulations on the second place finish.
Thank you.
That was Daryl Harris coming away second tonight here at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. David?
All right, that leaves one final interview to go, and that'll be your third place finisher, Kevin Maffitt. And Gary Weaver, I believe you caught up with him.
Yeah, he started started fourth and finished third, so only one position, but he did manage to last to the end of the race. So Kevin Maffitt, driver of the number 42, finally making it to the end of the race. How's the track out there this afternoon? and possibly some technical issues. Probably just a couple different settings, but nonetheless, again, that's pretty much how the race for number 42 went. Even though he did finish 3 laps down, he did manage to make it to the end of the race. So congratulations to him on that. Kevin, do you have us yet?
It felt pretty good to me. I'm not 100% sure about.
Yeah, it's very understandable on, especially since it's Canadian Tire and not everyone really races here as often. Since of course it is usually just one time a year, especially for it's not exactly common for road courses in the trucks, but definitely something that's unexpected. But heading to Charlotte next week, what are you looking forward to?
And I think, Gary, Kevin Maffin, unfortunately, is having some technical issues, so apologies to that there, I think, as well, David, though a lot to think about, I think, for Charlotte, I think.
Yeah, unfortunately, I would like to hear the thoughts of one Kevin Maffett, but I don't think he was able to get the talk button working or the microphone working or some combination of the two. But we'll get an opportunity to catch up with him at a later date. But yeah, we can finally put Canadian Tire Motorsports Park in the rearview mirror. Look ahead to Charlotte next week, 1 week from tonight. We'll get back to some good old-fashioned oval track racing, and then you heard it from Darrell Harris. Not real sure what he's going to be expecting going into that. Not something he has a lot of experience with. So, kind of a surprise to hear that, but maybe that'll make for a more interesting show next week. As some guys will have some. We talked about it all night, Justin. A comfort level here at Canadian Tire. Some guys will have a higher comfort level at Charlotte, and some won't. So again, that disparity in comfort level and skill generally makes for a pretty good show.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting who's going to be able to have the best pace, be able to manage the long run as well, and be able to come away with the checkered flag. It's going to be the question of who's going to be the most consistent, who's going to keep out of trouble, and who's going to be able to handle the momentum the best.
Yeah, absolutely right. And Gary, as we close out tonight's show, what do you take away from a race like tonight? What do you see here at Canadian Tire? You looking forward to coming racing it yourself?
I don't know. I mean, racing it myself, maybe, but that just depends. I mean, that would actually be quite fun, but if it's a one-time thing, then sure. And then I'm probably gonna regret that, and I'll end up loving it. So that's just something to look forward to if I were ever to race here myself.
Absolutely right. Well, you won't miss a thing as long as you're tuned in here to LSRTV throughout the week. We start a new week here tonight with the DJ Harris Design Truck Series, which you just watched. Tomorrow night, we'll transition to the Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series. So you're only one night away from more racing action here on your home for live sim racing. And we'll wrap it up there for Justin Prince, Gary Weaver. I'm David Schildhouse. Big thanks to Brett Wheeler for doing a great job bringing you the sights and sounds of tonight's racing action. And big thanks to all the folks here at DJ Harris Design for putting on a great show. We'll look forward to seeing you tonight. I'm sure to say tomorrow night, rather, getting ahead of myself for the Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series right here on LSRTV. Good night, everyone.
The following is a special presentation of iRacing on LSRTV, your home for sim racing.